the tissue could just rip right open and you can actually have limbs be separated. Extreme limb stretching, formidable fruit, and nightmare-inducing cradles. What? Today we are breaking down and reacting to 5 of the most chilling medieval torture devices and their impact on the human body from a medical standpoint. I will be talking about this from a historical and scientific perspective, but considering the sensitive nature of this topic, alright, let's dive right in. Number 5, the rack. Throughout history, humanity has witnessed the invention of various instruments of torment, but none are as feared and detrimental to the human body as the infamous rack. Known by several names throughout time, the torture rack, the stretching rack. This merciless contraption was commonly used during the medieval era, and its sole purpose was to cause intense pain and suffering by stretching the victim's body to its limits, resulting in horrific injuries. Consisting of a wooden frame, it was equipped with rollers on both ends. The victim would then lay flat on the rack with their limbs secured to the rollers using restraints. As the rollers were turned by the pain-inflicting people, the victim's body would be pulled in opposite directions, subjecting them to excruciating tension. The primary objective of the rack was to cause severe pain and suffering. As the body was stretched, the victim's joints, ligaments, and muscles would be subject to immense pressure, often leading to dislocation or even tearing. Bones could fracture, and internal organs might even suffer damage from all of the stretching as well. This process continued until the person in charge decided to stop.
Lester, just stop it!
Or the victim's body reached its limits. The prolonged stretching could lead to permanent disabilities and even death due to internal damage or shock. So some of these dislocated joints include your shoulder, your elbow, could even be your hip sockets, your knees, and then if there's any degree of cuts, the tissue could just rip right open and you can actually have limbs be separated. Horrible. And then you're stretching even further. You're not able to expand your lungs anymore. You can't take deep breaths. You can't get oxygen in. You become altered. A lot of things can happen. This can go on for hours and even days. So why would they use such a terrible contraption during the Middle Ages? Well, the rack was often used as a means of extracting confessions or obtaining information from prisoners.
You have to confess. It's your only way to find peace.
However, due to the unbearable pain, a lot of the time the victims often would admit to false accusations simply to end their suffering. You may have been wondering what kind of dark soul came up with such an agonizing invention. The origin of the rack is a bit of a mystery in history, with no specific inventor attributed to its creation. Its use, however, became widespread across different regions and periods, especially during the Middle Ages. Number 4, the Judas cradle, a grim testament to the depths of human cruelty. Known as the Judas cradle, this nightmarish contraption was put into action during the Spanish Inquisition, with variations reportedly being used in other parts of Europe and Asia as well. Constructed with a triangle-shaped seat, often made of wood or metal, it stood several feet above the ground and was supported by a sturdy base. The pointed apex of the triangle was positioned upwards, while the wide base ensured its stability. The unfortunate individual subjected to this would be suspended over the pointed apex of the triangle, typically with minimal or no clothing. Then the victim would be lowered down onto the point, which would go through their body via the nether regions. Sometimes weights would even be added to increase the agony, causing sharp points to stretch and tear the skin as they endured unimaginable pain. From a medical standpoint, the internal injuries caused by this device would lead to severe infections, leading to a slow, painful demise. Because of where the device enters the body, you're going to have lacerations, you may have some fracturing of the pelvis, you might have perforation of the bowel, and there might be injuries to blood vessels as it continues to go up the body. Also, you have to acknowledge the psychological impacts of this device as well. It was horrifying as victims were left in constant fear and pain. And if they didn't succumb to their injuries right away, the post-traumatic stress of it all just terrible. So who would create such an atrocious apparatus? Strangely, the origin of the Judas cradle is shrouded in historical obscurity. No specific individual can be credited with its invention. Number 3, the pear of anguish, also known as the choke pear or screw of the press, was an insane instrument of cruelty primarily used during the medieval and early modern periods across Europe and beyond. To say it left behind a legacy of horror and suffering would be an understatement. Looking kind of like a pear-shaped metal or wooden device, the pear of anguish is composed of 3 or 4 segments that could be expanded or contracted through the turning of a screw or a key. The device was divided into 3 variations, one for the mouth, one for the throat, and another for one down below in the genital region. When employed, it was meant to be a means of punishment or interrogation. For instance, to paint a not so pretty picture, it would be forced into the victim's mouth, then the screw would be tightened. As the device expanded, it would cause the segments to expand, gradually tearing the surrounding tissue. If you start putting something in your mouth and start expanding, you're going to be ripping the tissue here. It might be fracturing or dislocating the joint where your jaw hinges back and forth. A lot of different injuries could occur. You have nerves and blood vessels all on the side as well as muscles. Things can rip and tear and just cause a significant amount of discomfort. The medical aspects of the pear of anguish were extremely distressing. The tearing of tissue, the muscles and organs during expansion often led to severe bleeding and infections. Victims faced the risk of permanent disfigurement and in many cases death due to catastrophic internal injuries caused by the device. And if that wasn't bad enough, the intensity of the torment could be adjusted, making it a versatile instrument of suffering and a favorite among jailers. It was typically reserved for those accused of heresy, blasphemy, witchcraft, or other forms of treason. Number 2, the scavenger's daughter. A most sinister and horrifying instrument of punishment. This ghastly invention of torment was a metal contraption designed to contort and crush the human body, pushing victims to the brink of unbearable agony. To really simplify the design, it's a large metal hoop equipped with a central hinge and handles. The limbs were bound and the victim would be forced to be crouched inside this hoop. When the handles were pushed, the hoop would tighten, compressing the victim's body into an intense contorted position. In terms of the medical aspect of the scavenger's daughter, 2 words really sum it all up: brutal and fatal. Victims endured fractured bones, dislocated limbs, crushed organs, and severe muscle and nerve damage. The prolonged torment could lead to permanent disabilities, infections, and obviously in many cases death. Invented or at least attributed to Sir William Skeffington, an English politician, this frightful invention really emerged in the 16th century and was primarily used during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, according to historical records. It was said to have often been employed against those opposed of the political powers, when against the religious beliefs of the time, and others who were accused of treason as a means of punishment. Number 1, the Iron Maiden. Shaped like a standing sarcophagus, the Iron Maiden clearly resembles a life-size, human-shaped coffin, usually constructed from thick iron plates and adorned with spikes on the interior surface. It had a hinged door allowing those in charge, so to speak, to place victims inside and then seal them within the grotesque chamber. Once locked inside, the victims were forced to stand or crouch within the Iron Maiden. From there, the spikes on the interior walls would pierce the victim's body, causing intense pain and injury. The Iron Maiden was designed in such a way that the spikes would not have immediately delivered fatal wounds, but rather prolonged impalement of the spikes would lead to serious injuries, possibly puncturing a vital organ, extensive blood loss, and even possible infections. So the doors would come collapsing down on you. You would get impaled with these spikes at different areas, but you couldn't move. These spikes were now fixed inside your body to where if you adjusted, they would adjust and start causing more pain. They can harbor infection from previous people that might have been in there, increasing the risk of getting cellulitis, which then could turn into sepsis. You're not going to make it if you basically are not going to get appropriate treatment. Despite its gruesome reputation, some historians actually question the authenticity of the Iron Maiden's existence, suggesting it might have been a sensationalized invention of later periods. The memory of the Iron Maiden should serve as a chilling, cautionary tale urging us all to have compassion, empathy, and respect for the dignity of all human beings. All right, hopefully I was able to provide some medical insight on these insane historical practices, and hopefully by learning about such atrocities, we can collectively pledge to build a better future, free from such inhumane practices, and prevent such horrors from repeating itself. If you found this video enlightening, please check out this playlist right here for some other videos. Please make sure that you subscribe, turn your bell notifications on, and hit that like button for me. Thank you so much for watching, and stay healthy, my friends.